This video is going to talk about quick setup for running AR and Collections Manager, which can be done in a matter of minutes. So first we go to the AR and Collections, and then we go to Debt Collection Setup. Now when you first open this up, all of this will be empty. If you go to Process, you'll see a number of functions across the top here. We'll talk about them. Primarily though, we want to set Initialize Ar Setup. So Initialize Ar Setup is the first thing that you're going to do after you've created the collections representative in the previous video. So we click on this, it says completed, and it's completed a lot of the information that you'll see in here and a couple other screens. What it hasn't done is it hasn't specified a default collections rep. The default collections rep is the person who gets assigned accounts until they're assigned to a final collections rep. So when an account is new, it hasn't been set up yet, it gets assigned to whoever's in here, and whoever's in here can then transfer the account over to another collections rep, or they can keep it for themselves. So the first thing we need to do is go in, click on the pencil, and click on the drop down, and you'll see a list of the collections reps from the collection rep setup screen. So you pick the one that you want to assign to the account. Let's say that we're going to have John. The collections rep will be John. That's the only thing that you need to do. All of the rest, most of the rest of this has already been set up. There are a couple exceptions. The template for write-off, which we're going to get into talking about the details of how write-off is done. But right now, the only thing we need to know is that when we write something off, what we're doing is we're creating an entry in a journal and in a specific batch of the journal. And we're going to assign a reason code to it, and we're going to set up an offsetting GL account. So the first thing we need to do is we need to choose the template. Now by default, we've selected the cash receipts journal. Doesn't really matter which one you choose. You can choose the cash receipts. You can choose the general journal. Those will probably be the two most common ones. That's already done. But although you will see write-off appearing in the screen, it hasn't actually created the batch. So what you'll need to do is go in here and click on New and create the write-off batch. And all you need to do is open it up and type in a name and a description, write-off, and the description write-off. You don't need to do anything else except save it, and then make sure that it's selected write-off in here. The reason code write-offs, we'll talk more about reason codes in another video, and you'll need to choose a GL account for the write-offs. This may be a bad debt account, it may be some other account. This is going to be the default account that will be created when the journal entry is created, but that can be changed. It also can be assigned for specific reason codes, which we'll talk about that when we get to write-offs. The rest of this we'll talk about in the very last video, what all of these settings do. The only other thing that we want to do is make sure all of these are off. You'll want to make sure that the report invoice ID is 13 is whatever you're using for your posted sales invoice report. 1316 is a default Business Central report, and as is 10072 for customer statements, and we'll talk about that a little later. This subscription information fills in automatically, and it will set you up initially for evaluation. That's all that needs to be done, and at this point, we can go in and perform the first functions. Now, there's a couple other things that the quick setup has done as well, and that is we've also set up payment classes, which we'll talk about more in depth when we get into that section. And we've also set up action types with a couple basic action types. You may want to add some additional ones. This is for telephone calls. This is when we create a contact event and we want to record what we did. So there are a few basic functions that we've added, but you can go in and add more at any time. This concludes the basic setup, and now we're going to move on to using the system.